Give me an opinion.
Right, go round all the panel and it's just one word and it's a month. I'll go for October.
Kirsten.
I'm going to note to what Bernard said. Not December again, please.
No, but when do you think he will go? When do you think he should go?
October is more likely than December. I think a winter by-election was challenging for all parties.
Ian.
Well, the Prime Minister said nobody wants a general election. I think he couldn't be more out of touch if he tried. And
I'm sure he doesn't want one.
And I think actually he's probably, if I was advising him, he'd probably go May, because he gets a giveaway budget in April that he can promise things that are never going to happen.
We're just going to cross back to the count for an update from Ewan in Hamilton. What's the latest, Ewan?
Well, I wish I had an update. I wish I had an update. There's speculation here, you know, that it could be in the 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I'm sure about 20 minutes ago I said it was going to be in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. But basically what's happening around us at the moment is they're packing up the boxes, they're opening the cupboards and piling everything away. So basically everyone here wants this to be wrapped up pretty soon. Down on the floor, though, the candidates are still chatting to their campaign teams. They're pretty much waiting for this declaration as well. It's been imminent for quite some time now. We're waiting for some kind of update. There is a hubbub, there's brief flurries of activity up on the stage, which builds a bit of excitement that we're about to hear something, but at the moment, who knows?
You're just trying to make it seem dramatic for us, aren't you?
Well, that's my job here. I've got to make something sound dramatic when there's absolutely nothing happening here. But look, hopefully we should get this very soon. All the adjudication of the ballots, that looks to be complete now. All the candidates are basically just chatting away, laughing and smiling. There's been a lot of hugging in the Labour campaign team at the moment. They have basically started the celebrations already. We'll wait to hear exactly how much they have won by, because they certainly seem very, very confident down there on the floor that they have got a substantial victory here. The SNP team, I think, at the moment, basically they were just next to us a moment ago. They've just disappeared, probably moving forward towards the stage, which is a positive sign. But they have been putting a brave face on it, basically chatting and smiling, reflecting on what has been a very challenging campaign. There's that word, challenging, once again. That is what they have been describing this as for quite some time. But hopefully, fingers crossed, the next time you come back here, it'll be for a declaration.
And hopefully that'll be quite soon, Ewan. Thanks for that. You've been scrolling through your phone the last wee while, Ian. What's the word that you're getting from the count there? How much are you increasing your swing by this time?
I'm getting the reason I'm looking at my phone is to try and get some data that nobody else seems to be getting through, but it's mainly people messaging me for using the word phallic on STV, so that's where the messages are coming from. But we've got no data. Our data guys that are currently in the count, who would be sampling the boxes, doing the analysis, comparing it to previous by-elections, have got nothing at the moment apart from the fact that the swing looks pretty substantial. So we're waiting for the numbers to come through and hopefully we'll get it in the next few minutes.
What will be happening at the count right now, Bernard? Because we saw the count behind you and it seems to be all done bar the declaration.
I think you should ask the politicians, because they're the best ones to ask.
They'll be making approaches to the candidates and their agents and asking them to come into a wee ante-room or down the corridor so that they can be advised of the result before they're asked to go up on the stage. And that's the point where poker faces come into action for some people anyway. So, yeah, it'll be getting to that point, I imagine.
What might be causing the delay. There's 14 candidates, and the candidates and agents all have to be informed of the result. It might just be, it's quite a small room as I understand it. It might just be taking a little bit of time to get all the candidates and agents in the right place, either individually or together, to read out the result formally before they go and do the formal declaration on the stage. But it's an exciting time for the winners. This is utterly horrible for the losers because they've just got to stand there and wait.
And I think in 1999 at the Hamilton South by-election, after George Robertson went off to become NATO General Secretary, very safe Labour seat, but Bill Tynan held on to it only with a majority of about 500, and I think there was there a recount?
I think there may well have been.
There was a recount, and so when I was sitting in the chair that you're in just now, it was a case of keep it going for another 40 minutes or perhaps an hour. Or
yeah,
so
I've been having that in my ear for the last hour or so. But I mean, how difficult is it to be a candidate in those circumstances when you know you've either won or lost, but you're keeping that poker face that you were talking about there? That can't be easy. When you've got all the cameras on you as well.
I've certainly been in both of these positions. It's easier if you're winning, clearly, than if you're not winning. But you know, this is what you've been building up to for however many weeks and months. This is part of it. You know, it's not an entity of itself. The count and the declaration is all part of the campaign.
I mean, Sandy, it's slightly different in the Scottish Parliament because, you know, in a Westminster election you either win or you lose. In the Scottish Parliament you've always got a chance on the list if you're on that as well, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And that was my very first election. And it was a very difficult time because we thought that the vote had gone against me. So there was a lot of despondency until we were told in the anteroom that I'd just squeaked through.
And what's it like in that wee anteroom when you're getting the word from the returning officer and what's actually happened, what the result is, whether you're in or out?
Well, I mean, for me, I was convinced that I hadn't got it, so I was sat quite sullenly waiting to just hear the numbers. So we didn't quite believe what we were hearing when it came out. So it very much changed when the results were told.
There's a whole combination of things going on here, of course. The reason you keep your smiling and you keep your spirits up is not for the cameras, not for the media, I'm sorry to say, but it's for your activists and things that are in the room or watching it on television. You've got the respect to them to show that you're happy, you're smiling, and it's a thank you to them. But you're also, in all of these counts, it's late at night. Most people that are in that room will have been up at 5 a.m. this morning to do a morning delivery run. You're delirious with tiredness, let alone anything else. They've been wet all day. So when you put all of that cocktail together, plus all the tension, that room will just at this moment in time be full of tension and people just waiting to, either wanting to get home or wanting to get on that stage in front of that lectern.
I'm wondering what the winning speeches are going to be like in those circumstances. If you've been up since 5 this morning, you've been absolutely drenched as you're banging on people's doors saying, please come out and vote for me.
I get it on good authority from the returning officer. He's going to let all 14 candidates speak at length. So we could be here for some time.
I don't think we'll necessarily cover all 14 candidates' speeches winning. Well, maybe the winner's speech. I'm not sure we'll bother with some of the rest of them.
I think one of the best stories from an election was the legendary nationalist Oliver Brown, who stood for election. I can't remember the constituency, but he got an appallingly low vote. And he said, Mr. Returning Officer, at the beginning of this election, I had as my objective appealing to every sensible member of the electorate to support me, and I'm delighted to report I've had a 100% success rate. So if you're going to get a low vote, have a good line. Have a good line ready.
Well, there's the thing. If you don't win tonight, and it does look likely that Labour are going to win, as we've been saying all night, do you blame the voters?
No,
do you blame yourselves? What do you do? Where did you just go away and lick your wounds? Or what are you going to come back with after that?
I think that you would want to look at the whole situation, and that's what we'll do. You know, what were the circumstances, who came out to vote, who didn't come out to vote. You want to look at the big picture.
So how much analysis really goes on in that?
Yeah, there will be analysis of that. You know, I think that the things that we can be very clear about are the effort that went in from Katie and the campaign team. Hamza has led from the front in a really helpful and positive way. But we will have to look at what underpins all of that. You know, what is the data? What does that tell us?
We'll see what the vote.
All of these parties have had lots of people knocking on doors, and what I wouldn't expect any politician to share with us in a programme like this is what they're actually being told. I thought the vox pops right at the beginning of the programme were quite instructive, and I think you pointed this out. It's a long time since I can remember vox pops of people saying, we have to get the SNP out. I mean, there was almost an aggression in the way in which this was put out. People who are knocking on the doors will be getting feedback, and they will be collating feedback, and they will have some sort of idea why it appears, at any rate, that people have moved back to Labour. Is it because they think the SNP are just one-trick ponies on the issue of constitutional change? Is it because the record of the Scottish Government in the Scottish Parliament is beginning to play for it? What is it? They will have a fair idea why they've lost this.
Kirsten Oswald, that is going to be a big issue for you any election now. The record of your party in government, which, you know, was what you campaigned on in 2011. It was all about voting for the SNP because of the record. That's not something that you can play up quite so well in a general election or another Scottish Parliament election, because the record over the last few years hasn't been that good.
do you know, I mean, I would point to things like the Scottish Child Payment and say, you know, really, actually, we're doing things.
They would point to other things like the ferries and just come straight back at you with it.
We're doing things to make a measurable change to people's lives. And, you know, I guess the one thing that I would reflect on in all of this is who is going to stand up for the communities in Scotland? Who's going to stand up for Scotland? Whoever wins any election should be focusing on that, and that's what their aim should be. But of course we'll obviously look at all of the data. You know, you never take a vote or a voter for granted, and nor should you.
No.
So that's the next step. But let's see exactly where we are first.
I mean, they'll have data when the boxes are opened, and if political parties have a big canvas which has been done in a constituency, and local agents and sub-agents who know areas, they know where their vote is, they'll be able to see which areas of the constituency have
Because Ian was
changed.
saying they knocked on 33,000 doors.
They will know which areas of the constituency have changed, but the key thing is why they have changed. When activists are on the doorstep, they pick things up, and when you go back to the committee rooms at night, you will be feeding through. Now, I don't know why people that were voting SNP in 2019 have gone Labour tonight. I don't know, but I'll tell you what, a lot of people that have been out working and canvassing for the SNP will know exactly why they've gone over, because they've spoken to voters on the doorstep.
And that's the point.
Nicholson, you're not going to tell us that tonight, but Ian,
But
what are
that's
you
the
going
point
to
I
tell
was
us?
making earlier about what David Linden was saying right at the start of this programme, just talking about Labour are going to win this because they've just taken Tory votes. Actually, the biggest concern for David and for all of the SNP has to be those massive amounts of SNP supporters who've either stayed at home or decided to put their cross in the Labour box. And I merely tell the same story as I told earlier on. At 10 o'clock this morning, I knocked on the door of a man who went into his wallet, pulled out his SNP membership card and followed it immediately up with, "But I voted for your guy this morning." That's the kind of reflection we need to have. And why did he do that? Because he was voting for a positive campaign, a positive candidate, and he was voting for change, and he wasn't being offered that change by his own party.
And isn't this going to be a problem for the Conservatives as well? Because you're talking about delivery in government. And, you know, a lot of people are going to want rid of the Conservatives at the next general election because, you know, you've been through umpteen prime ministers and certainly some of them have seemed less competent than others.
But we've hit upon a very good Prime Minister. Rishi Sunak is
by chance, who wasn't even elected by his own party.
It's not by chance. Rishi Sunak is a very competent Prime Minister. He is reducing inflation. He's doing the things that he said he would do. And you're hearing that.
The Bank of England of reducing inflation.
And you're hearing this throughout his speech. We've got a very positive Prime Minister. So what I would say is in the areas where we are the biggest challenger, up and down Scotland, people are voting for us, people are talking to us, and people know that we are the real alternative.
Rishi Sunak's personal approval ratings as Prime Minister are diabolical. He had a very small honeymoon period that made him slightly more popular than Liz Truss, and he's now back to being those
Sorry
figures
to
again.
interrupt you, and we're just seeing the candidates, I think, or hopefully we can go back to the count in Hamilton. And there you are. That's the candidates in the huddle in the corner. They're looking at or they're being told the result, I presume. I also think there's a rumour, certainly from the count, that they're looking at spoilt ballot papers because the hold-up at the moment, because they should have had the result a while ago, the hold-up at the moment seems to be over some dispute over a spoilt ballot paper. Spoilt ballot paper out of about 30,000 votes, which seems like an awful hold-up.
The returning officer should just move to the declaration.
I think we'd all quite like him to move to the declaration, but there you can see the candidates. You can see Katie Loudon and Michael Shanks just at the back of the group there with the other, 14 of them if they're all there. I don't even know if they are all there, but it looks like the returning officer is being pretty frank with them there, Bernard.
I mean, it's amazing in a constituency, 82,000 voters, and on general election night, when there used to always traditionally be a race between Hamilton South and Sunderland South to be the first to declare, that this constituency used to declare way before 1 o'clock on turnouts of nearly 70%. And here is a turnout below 40%, and we're almost at 1:45 in the morning.
And this is when you realise whether you've done well at maths at school or not, because what he does is he flashes a piece of paper at you, you quickly find where your own name is, and you try and find the second person that you think might be finishing second, and do a quick calculation to see if A, you've won, and B, what the majority is. It's a remarkable thing that we have this democracy, that you get flashed a piece of paper.
Well, it doesn't look like Katie Loudon and Michael Shanks are bothering about that, because they're standing right at the back of the bunch. They are just, I think they're probably just wishing, like everyone else, that it was actually over, because, you know, if all this is just because one of the wee parties is fighting over a spoilt ballot or something like that, given that I say 30,000 votes for one vote, it's not going to change much.
Yeah, but if you're sitting on 5 and you were listening to Bernard earlier, and this gives you 6, you might want
absolutely, yes, but I don't think
maybe it's a matter of the deposit being retained.
I don't think Commander Bill
Boakes
I think Commander Bill Boakes has long gone from these by-elections, though.
The person's trying not to be a Bernard Ponsonby anecdote at the next by-election. That's what they're trying to do.
I think there might be a few of the candidates from the smaller parties or the independents who might turn into by-election anecdotes, possibly even memes online these days.
I think he's reading the numbers now.
That's him going through the results there, isn't it? We're clearly only minutes away from the actual declaration, as we can see the pictures coming in from the count there. Now, one thing that I haven't asked you at all tonight, I wonder if this has been a factor in the turnout, though. Voter ID. We've never had that in an election in Scotland before either. I mean, is that something that any of you picked up on the doorsteps, that could be a bit of a problem?
A wee bit. I picked it up a wee bit that, you know, I was saying to people, don't forget, and people, you know, not everybody, but, you know, a small number of people were wondering what I was talking about, a little bit surprised, heard about a couple of folk being turned back. So I don't know whether they then, you know, went back to their houses. So, yeah, I did hear about it a little bit. I kind of thought I might hear about it a little bit, but certainly something that we'd been talking about quite a lot in the run-up to try and mitigate. It's a ridiculous policy. It's a policy that doesn't solve a problem that exists. There's no problem that it was solving, but nonetheless, that is what the Westminster government have brought in. So, you know, it's unfortunately our job to talk to people about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Electoral Commission are actually doing a study, I heard from the returning officer earlier, of this by-election, and the number of people who could go to the polling station and get turned away or have to go back and get their ID. There was 2 elderly couples actually today at one of the polling stations who went back and got their ID and came back. But what that study...
Given the rain, that's quite a bit of commitment,
it was a huge commitment, but given the biggest problem with that kind of study is the number of people who don't go because they've no
here
ID.
we are. The candidates are going up on the stage, so that means we're coming to a result. Well, imminently. There is the returning officer waiting to give us the result. The candidates are just forming up behind him. There may be some flash photography during this, but we're going to get the declaration.
By-election, the declaration of results for the Rutherglen and Hamilton West constituency on Thursday, the 5th of October 2023. As was shared earlier, the electorate was 82,104. The total votes cast was 30,531, and the percentage poll was therefore 37.19%. I, Clellan Snedden, returning officer for the UK Parliamentary General Election in the Rutherglen and Hamilton West constituency, hereby give notice that the total number of votes polled for each candidate at the election was as follows. Gloria Adibo, Scottish Liberal Democrats, 895 votes. Bill Bonner, Scottish Socialist Party, Free Public Transport, 271 votes. Gary Patrick Cook, 6 votes. Andrew Vincent Daly, 81 votes. Cameron Eadie, Scottish Green Party, 601 votes. Prince Ankit Love, Emperor of India, 34 votes. Niall Fraser, Scottish Family Party, Fearlessly Speaking Truth, 319 votes. Ewan Hoyle, Volt UK, the UK and Europe, 46 votes. Thomas Jordan Kerr, Scottish Conservative and Unionist Party, 1,192 votes. Katie Loudon, Scottish National Party, 8,399 votes. Christopher Anthony Sermani, Scottish Trade Unionist and Socialist Coalition, 178 votes. Michael Shanks, Scottish Labour Party, 17,845. David Stark, Reform UK, Changing Politics for Good, 403 votes. Colette Walker, Independence for Scotland Party, 207 votes. There were a total of 54 ballot papers rejected, and I declare that Michael Shanks is elected to serve in the United Kingdom Parliament as a member for Rutherglen and Hamilton West constituency.
Can I start by thanking you, Returning Officer, and all your staff for the efficient management of today's election, and also for all the work that went into the recall petition process, which seems like a lifetime ago now. It's truly the honour of my life to be elected to serve the people of Rutherglen and Hamilton West. And I'd like to start by thanking my campaign team. I couldn't have asked for a better team of people to spend the past 6 months on all the streets of Rutherglen and Hamilton West, and this victory tonight is as much theirs as it is mine. They are a dedicated team of exceptionally talented and hard-working people, ably led by the one and only John Paul McHugh, who I thank as my agent for all his hard work. I also want to thank all my fellow candidates for the way this election has been conducted. It's never easy standing for election, and our democracy has been well served by the numerous hustings and events that we've attended together, so thank you. But my biggest thanks goes to the people who tonight have put their trust in me to represent them. I've spoken to thousands of you in your living rooms, on your doorsteps, in church halls, in cafes, on the street. You've shared your hopes, your dreams, your fears, your aspirations with me, and it's been a privilege to get to know all of you. My campaign has been focused on offering people here a fresh start, a break away from the divisiveness and distraction of two failing governments, and to give a voice to those who are too often voiceless in our society. And I want to highlight just one conversation, because it gets to the heart of why I'm in politics. To Bernie and to your daughter Jodie, you welcomed me into your lives and told me about the challenges you've been facing with disability and exclusion, and the constant battle for the support you need to live the life you want. I've spent 20 years working with disabled people, and your story, sadly, is not unique, and it's something that I'd like to work hard on as the MP for this area. Too many families now are struggling with the cost of living crisis and with NHS waiting lists, and after voting SNP for years, you put your trust in me, and I'll work tirelessly to repay that trust. People need representation and have too often been ignored. People need change from governments that have too often been distracted. But that change isn't just here in Rutherglen and Hamilton West. Across Scotland, communities like this are being let down. This isn't as good as it gets, and thanks to the leadership of Anas Sarwar, people are once again listening to the Scottish Labour Party and know from tonight that change is possible. And across the UK, Keir Starmer is showing that our relentless focus on delivering for working people offers a clear alternative to the out-of-touch, morally bankrupt Tory party. So the message from tonight is a resoundingly clear one. We've had more than enough of managed decline, more than enough of division, more than enough of distracted, chaotic government. It's time for change. That change can't come fast enough, but one thing is now clear. There's no part of this country where Labour can't win. Labour can kick the Tories out of Downing Street next year and deliver the change that people want and this country so badly needs. Tonight is one part of that journey. Tomorrow, our fight continues, and my work to represent you as the MP of this fantastic community begins. Thank you.
OK, there you have Michael Shanks, the new MP for Rutherglen and Hamilton West. A Labour MP, you've got a pal, you've got a chum to take down to Westminster with you, Ian.
And I tell you what, I've not just got a chum, I've got a chum with an absolutely whacking mandate. I mean, a 20.5% swing. I've got a sheet of paper here that has up to 16% swing in it, and it's not enough. That would be 34 seats for the Labour Party at the next election. On that kind of uniform swing across the country of 20.5%, I think Labour will be winning pretty much every seat. So we've smashed the polls, we've smashed the trends. It's been a great night for the Scottish Labour Party, and as Michael Shanks says, we're back in business, and we're talking and listening to the voters about why.
And that's a bad result for the SNP. That's almost like the 2010 general election result for Labour, back to those levels when you got half a dozen seats across Scotland.
I'm not sure it's quite there, but it is a disappointing result for us, and nobody will suggest otherwise. So congratulations to Michael, and commiserations to Katie and the other candidates. I know that Katie and her team worked hard, but yeah, we'll go away and look at this result. It's not the result that we would have hoped for. It's not the result that we worked for. But I do think that it is probably not the right thing to extrapolate what will happen in a general election from this. But we will obviously be having a good look at our data and making sure that we have properly listened to what the voters are telling us. I think that's the proper thing to do.
Sandesh Gulhani, your vote vanished. It went from over 8,000 to under 1,200.
Well, let me first say congratulations to Michael and commiserations to everyone else, and that Thomas ran a fantastic campaign. But you are right, there's a significant reduction. But we said that we would always be squeezed in this, what is essentially a unique circumstance in a by-election. Of course. But up and down the country, and doors that we're knocking, we're hearing positive news for the Scottish Conservatives. And look, at a by-election, this isn't necessarily going to translate all across the country.
Bernard, what do you make of it? A 20% swing. Yeah, that's a big swing.
Yeah, I'd said that would this by-election be the stuff of protest, or would it be a portent of things to come where it was going to shape the politics well beyond the by-election? I said I would put my head in the chopping block, and I would suggest it was the latter, and indeed I do believe it is the latter. This is the 5th largest swing in Scottish by-election history. Hamilton right at the top. This comes in at number 5. I think that if this were to be replicated, it won't. It won't when we get to the general election. Different dynamics, different campaign. But frankly, this is at the wildest end of Labour's expectation. I think most commentators at the beginning said Labour will win. The question was always, would they win well? And the key thing right at the top of the programme that I talked about, they can't win simply by squeezing the Conservative vote. They have to take SNP votes. They have taken them by the barrel load. There will be SNP MPs tonight looking at this result saying, if even any of this is replicated at the general election, I will be looking for a job. Scottish politics has now changed as a result of this by-election. The SNP, for the first time in a long time, have a fight in their hands. Labour are back. That is clear. That is unambiguous. We shouldn't get ahead of ourselves about what it means for the general election. But in this kind of result, this is a springboard which is going to have profound consequences.
We can see the breakdown of the vote, Bernard. Just talk us through the changes that we've seen there. Because that is, I mean, as you say, I think this is a spectacular result for Labour. Yeah. Because, as you say, it's one of the biggest by-election changes. It's the first Westminster by-election Labour have taken from the SNP.
It's the first Westminster by-election that Labour have taken from the SNP. I mean, an almost 10,000 majority when the SNP started with a majority of just over 5,000. Now that, and it was almost a similar kind of swing back in Glasgow East in 2008. The SNP got a swing of 22.5% in that by-election. A small majority, but it went back to Labour at the general election because it was a classic protest.
But this will be different, won't it?
I believe that this will be different because Labour have been in the electoral doldrums in Scotland for quite some time. And we have to look at the trends in the polls since the 2019 general election, where the SNP had 45% of the vote. I think over the last 20-odd polls, they're now down to about 38%. Now, this is running way ahead of what the polls are saying, way ahead of what the polls are saying. But even if you take all of the sort of drama of the result out of it, when you look at what's happening in the polls, when you look at this by-election result, you have to conclude it's game on at the general election. And the key thing is that I think we can conclude that the high point of electoral support for the SNP is over.
Do you accept that that is the case, Kirsten, that this by-election result shows how much Scottish politics has changed?
Scottish politics is always an interesting place, but I think we probably need to look a wee bit at the context. The turnout for this by-election is very low. You know, Bernard has said that, you know, we can't extrapolate, and nor nor can we. It's such a specific set of circumstances. So, you know, whilst I do absolutely congratulate Michael on his victory, and, you know, I hope that we can see support from him, as he said, I think would be there in terms of things like the 2-child cap. I think that's a slightly more complex and nuanced situation than maybe the headline figures suggest. So, you know, we'll be out there fighting for every seat as we always do in the SNP. We've got plenty to give and plenty to say.
But Hamza Yousaf said during this by-election campaign, the buck stops with him. He's had a battering from that buck tonight, hasn't he?
I don't think we could have asked for more from a First Minister and a party leader who has led from the front. He has been out with the activists. He's
and the
spoken
voters
to
have had
people
their
on
verdict,
the door.
and it's not very good for him.
And it is a period of change, you know, and we
Okay,
understand
I'm going to
and
stop you
accept
just
that.
now, because we're going to go back to the count in Hamilton, and Michael Shanks, the new MP for Rutherglen and Hamilton West, is about to do his first interview as the new MP. Michael Shanks, congratulations on your victory tonight. How do you feel about that?
Thanks very much, Colin. It genuinely is the honour of my life to have been elected by the people of Rutherglen and Hamilton West. I've met thousands of them over the past 6 months, and for them to have put their trust in me means the world.
There was bits of your speech that we couldn't hear too clearly, but you were talking about disability and exclusion. Tell us what you were saying about there.
Well, I spoke about a family that I met a few weeks ago who has a child with spina bifida. I've spent 20 years volunteering with disabled children. For me, it's one of the things that got me into politics in the first place, because for too many families, they suffer social exclusion and challenges to living the life that they want to live. And the family that I met, I hope in my time as an MP I can do something to help them, but also it's not a unique situation. There's many families struggling with the cost of living crisis, also waiting on NHS waiting lists for far too long, and I'll campaign to change that.
And what will you actually be able to do to change that, to help people like this family that you're talking about, but all the others in Rutherglen and Hamilton West who are struggling with the cost of living crisis?
Well, I think it's really clear the family I'm talking about felt voiceless. They didn't have an MP fighting their corner at all. So for the people in this constituency, this is the chance they have to have an MP that's going to champion their cause in the House of Commons, and that's what I'll spend every day doing. But I think it's also clear we've outlined in this by-election that there is change possible with Labour. People have put their trust in the Labour Party. I hope that that's repeated across the whole of the UK when the general election happens, because people can't wait any longer for the real support they need on the cost of living, but also in a whole range of other areas where the Tory party at the moment offers absolutely no change for people's lives. It's Labour that offers that change, and clear from tonight people are going to vote for that. You
were the bookies' favourite from the absolute outset of this by-election campaign, but the scale of your victory, is it so big it's even surprised you a bit?
Look, I think it's been clear for months now that people were fed up with the SNP, and really clear we had a positive campaign that had a real energy around it. SNP spent their entire campaign talking about the Labour Party. It's clear from tonight's result what people favoured. Of course, I'm just incredibly honoured that as many people as did put their faith in me, but I'm not surprised that people feeling totally scunnered with politics as it is at the moment wanted a fresh start, and that was what the Labour Party offered in this by-election.
Michael, I'm going to bring your new Labour, well, you're his new Labour colleague at Westminster. I'm going to bring Ian Murray in. Ian, what do you want to say to your new pal at Westminster tonight?
Oh, well, I hope he is going to be my pal and just not a colleague. But congratulations, Michael. That's a utterly fantastic result. And of course, it was all to do with the activists and the conversations we had on the doorstep. But it's mainly because he's such a great candidate, and he'll be a superb MP and a role model for people in Rutherglen and Hamilton West. And, you know, he'll be working first thing tomorrow morning to start doing the things that he wants to do, because he's that kind of guy. I wish him all the best, and he'll be fantastic.
It sounds like you've got a list of work for him ready to do. Michael, it sounds like he's got a list already for you.
Well, look, I think it's very clear from this by-election. I've ended up with hundreds of pieces of casework already, but there's a huge number of things in the community that we've identified that we want to focus our time on. So I'm not going to have any shortage of tasks to do, and I'm really excited to get started with them.
Well, I'm sure you will be starting first thing tomorrow. I gather that Sir Keir Starmer might be up visiting you tomorrow, given the scale of your victory. Has he helped much during this campaign?
I think that's entirely possible, but Sorry?
Has he been a big help to you during this campaign? He's been up a few times.
Yeah, absolutely. He's been here 3 or 4 times. We've done public meetings with people. It's really clear that when he talks to people about Labour's ideas, but also his real drive with a mission-driven Labour government, it's very clear people buy into that and are enthused by that. And his visits have gone down really, really well. And I'm glad that he may be coming along tomorrow. I'm not entirely sure of the details, but
Michael Shanks,
it'd be great to welcome him back.
Michael Shanks, the new MP for Rutherglen and Hamilton West, congratulations and thanks for joining us and doing your first interview as the new MP with STV. Sandesh Gohani, what did you make of what the new MP has to say there? And just a quick reflection on your own party's situation after tonight, after that gubbing for you.
Well, what he said about people wanting the SNP out, that's exactly what we're hearing on the doors up and down Scotland, and that is what we are looking for at the next election. And at the very outset of this programme, we said that it was going to be a very challenging time and that our vote was going to get squeezed because of the unique nature of this by-election. I'm
going to get the share of the vote up just now, and I'm going to come to you, Kirsten, to talk about that share of the vote before we then go to Bernard. It shows that your vote is down substantially, down 16.6%. That's quite a lot, Kirsten. That's quite a big fall for you, isn't it?
It's obviously a disappointing result for us. I don't think that anybody would suggest anything other than that. You know, we can see the numbers there in front of us. And the Conservatives have indeed lost their deposit. So I think Sandesh is more than a little bit minimising that. It's a pretty big
quick
deal.
word from Ian before we go, because we've not got long.
Scottish politics has changed tonight because people have voted. People have voted for that change, and long may the general election come so we can get that change for the whole country.
Bernard, he's now quoting you back.
This was a tale of 2 parties and the ramifications, a tale of 2 leaders. For Sir Keir Starmer, way over what he could have expected. It is a horrible result for the First Minister. Absolutely dreadful. Early on in his First Ministership is going to be tough for him.
It is a spectacular by-election result tonight. You've just heard from Michael Shanks, his first interview as the new Labour MP for Rutherglen and Hamilton West, elected with a landslide victory tonight, 58% of the vote. But that's all from this Scotland Tonight special on the night that Michael Shanks won the big majority in Rutherglen and the Hamilton West by-election that we've been talking about. Thanks for staying with us. But from all of us here in the studio and at the count in Rutherglen and Hamilton, sorry, good night.
Could you describe